Hey everybody, this is Bridget Danner with Women's Wellness Collaborative, and this is a little video for you to understand what we mean by a functional approach to women's health. Like, what does that mean? What do we do? And in a way, this little video is to make up for a webinar that we did a few days ago. It was a live webinar, and one party's internet was not working great, so the webinar came out a little rocky, which is super frustrating for you as a viewer. And then also I just realized, this was the second time we've done this webinar, that it's sort of too technical and too left brain to really represent us. So we're taking an aspect of what we do and diving into it, which could have some value, but I just found people wanting to jump to specific questions and specific answers, and it's really not how we work. So our approach is really a feminine approach to functional medicine. Our energy is very nurturing and collaborative, and we do, and I'll talk about them today, we do run labs, and that's super fascinating and super helpful, but we need to look at that kind of masculine way to look at health in a more balanced concept. So what is important to me and to your success is your story. And that's where we start on the first step of a potential journey together. And that's what the session we call Spark Case Review. So this is, a one-time session. It has a small fee that you can apply towards if you keep going in the program. And we do a case review on it. So it's definitely not a sales call. You fill out a form and we go over your case. And I have an example case coming up on the podcast I will link to when it's ready, or if you're watching this video as it comes out, it'll be out next week. It's a great example of how the case review works. I don't get a ton of details, but I get an overall sense of your story and your symptoms so that I can ask you more questions. And really so much comes from that. And we call it Spark because it's sort of the beginning. It's like, what's going on here? Like, what could this be something? Could we go somewhere? And then if you do continue on to the full Restore Your Radiance program, it's prepaid number of sessions. Right now it's 7 sessions that may evolve over time. It's 7 sessions, and 5 of those are more kind of technical with your protocol and reviewing your labs, but they're also still having that supportive, nurturing environment. We're never just like, here's what you have to do, go do it. How are you going to do this? What are you struggling with? And then there's another couple sessions that are called Diet, Lifestyle, Mindset, so DLM. And depending on the client, sometimes we deep dive into your diet if that is needing a lot of support. And sometimes we talk more about your life stressors or the stress that's being caused by being ill for you. We talk about all sorts of things, hobbies and career. There's so many things that can affect our health besides some of the things I'll talk about on the lab. So we can look at lab results, and it's super helpful for sure. But I think it's also just so important to take that feminine approach and keep it going, because probably one factor that got you into disease is that you were stressed, right? We all are overburdened and overstimulated. And if we take that same approach to healing, something is still not healed. We still have the same approach. So it was something that I found as I went through treatment for toxic mold. I was seeing a few different practitioners, and I'm sure they all cared about my success, but something was missing often. Like, the real listening to what my experience was, and the frustrations I was having. So it's something we try to bring in and partner with you on. So we start with a spark case review, and then the next kind of phase of the program we call light bulb moments, because you'll be having discoveries, and some of those you'll have right in the spark. But then as we get a little deeper and you get some lab results and we talk more, you'll start to realize things that were an influence on your health. I'm recalling one client that we had who, she's pretty young and she's attractive and she's newly married and she's got a good career. She also has an autoimmune disease she developed pretty young in high school. And hearing more about her story and her relationship with her mom, and it became pretty clear that her relationship with her mom was a huge influence on her health. And it was a trigger to send her into autoimmunity at such a young age. So no judgment on her mom, or, we're not a therapy session, but at the same time, like, we're just recognizing, we're just acknowledging, like, oh, yeah, that was hard for me. That had an impact on me. And just like that acknowledgement, just for like a moment with someone else who cares for you, can be huge, can really shift your health. So as much as I want to give these guys some precedent, I want to give also some power to you and your history and your story, because it's shaping you and you can shape it. And so moving on from light bulb moments, we get into really restoring your radiance, like coming back to who you most want to be. Many of our clients have low energy and don't have energy for things they want to do, whether it's getting pregnant, raising kids, their job, their relationships. And so getting back to like, what can you be? How can this story change? How can we be thankful for the things, the hardships that have happened to us and how they formed us, and move forward into what is our potential, to let go of some things that are limiting us and move forward into our potential. So I feel good and relieved to be able to talk about this, because it's so important, and it's so much a part of what we do. And now I'm going to tell you about labs, because I'm sure you want to know a bit more. So as we do as you enter the program and we do a deeper health history for you, we determined some labs we want to run, some initially and then maybe some later, because the first round of labs may suggest that we should run some more. We also often will retest for labs to see what we've accomplished so far. So the two most common ones we run, these aren't the only ones we run, but the two most common ones we run, the first one is called Dutch test, dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. So this is a super easy test to take from home, anywhere in the world, because it's so small. It's like, it fits in an envelope. And some people, again, getting to the details, ask us the price. We just charge you what the lab charges us as we need it. So we don't know if you need it yet, right, until you're in the program. So once you're in there, then we talk about that. But we ask you to allow some money, to budget some money to run some labs and buy supplements, because that's definitely going to happen. And there's more information about that on our program page. So we love this Dutch test, and it's pretty long. So I'll just show you some highlights, read you some highlights. So first page here, we have estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, total levels. And we had a great question the other day. Well, what if my periods are regular? Super question. So there's two ways to run this test. One is to do it for one day, usually around day 20 or 21 of your cycle. If you're no longer cycling because you're postmenopausal, it can be any day. If you are missing your cycle, even though you should be having a cycle, you can kind of do it any day as well. If you are cycling, but it's irregular, we have you often do it over the course of a cycle, so we can see what shifts are happening or not happening in the cycle. So there's two options there and different price points for those. So getting a sense of total hormone production, which is really helpful. And then on this chart here, then we see cortisol pattern, which is interesting. So this is a urine test, and you're peeing out cortisol metabolites. So it can see the level of the cortisol from the level of cortisol, like broken down cortisol that you urinate. So we can see a pattern, and we can see if there's a spike or if you're high or you're low. The great thing about testing is that you really don't know till you test. Sometimes you're surprised, sometimes we are surprised. You can also see here, this isn't the greatest example, the DHEA production, and that's a precursor hormone that makes other sex hormones and also does a lot of repairing in your body. So you want to get a sense of that for female health as well. And then this little area will show you free cortisol versus metabolized cortisol. And this can give you a sense of, this is one example of how one test could suggest another. So if you're not making enough cortisol, that could be a thyroid issue to test, for example. So this lab is pretty long, and we don't always just different ways as a practitioner to utilize it. So they have all these charts. I'll just give you a brief overview of this next one. This is telling you about your DHEA, again, getting a little more in depth about it, telling you how you break down estrogens, which is good to know for detoxification, methylation. There's a section about what type of testosterone you make, if it's more of like an inflammatory type. So this is like kind of taking that first page and saying, well, what happens next in your body from the hormones you make. So pretty interesting if you're wondering about detoxification, which a lot of women are. If you're dealing with like breast cancer risk, that kind of a thing. If you're dealing with acne or PCOS, this page would come into play quite a bit. And then, let's see, there's a thing about melatonin here, which is a hormone for sleeping, but also for repairing. Some more fun charts about cortisol in production versus cortisone, which is sort of like a way to slow down cortisol, I guess you could say. So it can kind of show what disease state the body's in. And then there's some explanations about some new markers on the test. Oh, I forgot I had some backsides. If you get really geeky, there's a big chart about your hormone pathways. So these test results come to us by email, and then we share them with you by email, and we review it for you personally on one of your sessions. So that's a bit of an overview. So it can see things like low hormone levels, estrogen dominance, PCOS patterns, just things like energy and waking and sleeping, and a little bit about oxidative damage, detoxification ability we talked about. It's just giving an overview. And then I wanted to show one more. This is called the GI map by Diagnostic Solutions. Whoops, here we go. You can see on the corner there it says DNA stool analysis. This is really important because this type of test looks for DNA of different bugs, and it uses some kind of, I think, enzyme like solution to multiply the DNA that's there so there's more of it, and then try to find and identify all these different bugs and pathogens. So this test is a little simpler to read. It's just a list, and it starts off with pathogens and like C. diff, salmonella, and then it moves in Giardia, then moves into H. pylori, which a lot of people are curious about. This person did have H. pylori, and you can see that it was high. Here we go, high, and then that it was positive for like a what they call a virulence factor, which means like it's a type of H. pylori that could cause some more serious damage. So it's one you want to address for sure. And then we get into bacteria and flora, normal flora, opportunistic bacteria. I know this might be a little fuzzy, but we're just trying to get an overview. And I can see when we have some good bacteria that we want that's low, that's something to know. And when there's opportunistic bacteria that's high, that's something to note as well. So, we got a question on the webinar, well, how do you treat it? Do you do antibiotics? It really depends on the situation and the overall picture. And why we do so much of this GI map is because the gut health or lack thereof is a huge stressor on your body and your hormones. So really 100% of our clients in the program are doing a gut protocol because they had some positive things on here, some positive symptoms, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have a ton of indigestion. Some people, that's really not something they focus on or complain about a lot, but yet when we work to fix these triggers, they feel a lot better. So it's just a stress on your body. That's a functional medicine approach, right? Going to find the root of the stress and removing the roots, pulling the roots out so that you don't keep having the same symptoms over and over. So again, these are just a couple examples, and there are other tests we can run for, food sensitivities, thyroid, neurotransmitters, that kind of a thing. Let's see if there's anything else you want to... Parasites. Some parasites are on here. Not every parasite is on here, but some parasites are on here. Fungus and yeast, including candida, which is really common. Parasites are not as uncommon as you may think. We have a podcast episode about that. We'll probably have more to come because I think parasites are really interesting. And then the last page, short page, is showing some digestive enzymes, your secretory IgA, which is like a mucousy immuno substance that protects you from whatever comes in through your mouth. So it's your gut layer, and it helps, identify and sort out what comes in through your gut. We want that nice and robust, and in a lot of women it's low because of stress or other factors. There's also something on here called an anti-gliadin IgA. That's the protein in wheat, kind of also called gluten. And that shows when your immune system is reacting to gluten protein. So if you see that coming up as high, your body's really reacting, and that means that when you eat gluten, it's stressing you out physically. So it might make you happy in the moment, but it's stressing you out physically. And then they're always modifying. So they added a test on here that's an enzyme that would block your ability to break down estrogen, beta-glucuronidase. And that guy is on here, and that's a new marker for them that, as we talked about in the webinar, my colleague Anne Moline, who mostly does all these reviews, she's finding when that number is of value, what threshold does it become a factor in your ability to break down estrogen. So that's one really close tie-in between hormones and the gut. But again, there's just a huge connection between hormones and the gut, and it's why this functional approach is one-on-one and customized for you. So we can tell you generally things that are good for the gut, generally some foods that are good for hormones, but until we really know your hormone pattern and your gut health, and then anything else we need to know about your thyroid or food sensitivities, what have you, we can't develop a really specific protocol for you without that information. And that's the one cool thing I'll say about our program. But again, I don't want to fixate on it because it's certainly not the only cool thing. And we just got some feedback from our first group of women through the program, and they definitely enjoyed getting the labs and getting the results. But they also just enjoyed the emotional support, the help with cooking and changing their lifestyle. no matter what phase you're in, we all need support with that. We have women who are very advanced with their diet and women who are not so much. But everybody's got stuff, right, to talk about. So we just bring to light whatever is for you, whatever you need to bring to the surface for your healing and your moving forward. Because, ultimately, I enjoy talking about health, and you probably do too, or you wouldn't be on here. But we also want to live our lives. We don't want to just focus our lives around symptoms and our supplements, and you want to get back to living and within a healthy construct, because once you restore your radiance, you want to keep it up. You want to learn the habits that keep you in health. And that's really important too. It's important to me as your coach, and important to you for your longevity and your lifestyle. So I hope that helps. I'll put some links about the program below. We enroll twice a year. Right now it's 2017. We're enrolling through September 6th, and then we will not again until January, February, something like that. So if you're interested, or even maybe interested, just come have that initial conversation. That's not the full commitment. It's just coming in, talking, and getting some feedback on your case, which has value whether you decide to move forward or not. So thanks so much, everybody.